Death did not frighten medieval people the way it frightens us today. They did not hide from it. They did not avoid thinking about it. They did not pretend it was distant. Death lived with them. It stood in the corner of the room when a child coughed too long. It waited beside the bed when a woman went into labor. It walked through villages after bad harvests. It arrived with winter, famine, and disease. People expected to die young. They did not ask how long life would be. They asked how prepared they were, because in medieval Europe, dying was not the disaster. Dying unprepared was. What terrified people wasn't the moment the heart stopped. It was the moment after. In the medieval mind, death was not a blank space. It was a passage, a transition, a judgment. The soul did not drift, it did not sleep, it did not disappear. It stood before God. And that moment determined everything. Life on earth was temporary, painful, short, fragile. But eternity was permanent, and eternity could be unbearable. Hell was not a philosophical idea. It was not a metaphor for guilt. It was not a symbolic warning. Hell was geography, a real place, with structure, with rules, with specific punishments. People believed hell existed as surely as forests, rivers, and mountains existed. And unlike Earth, hell could never be left. Medieval people lived in a world where suffering was normal. Hunger was normal. Disease was normal. Violence was normal. Pain was expected. But all pain on earth had one mercy. It ended. Hell did not. This difference changed everything. A starving person could still hope. A sick person could still pray for release. A dying person could still believe pain would stop. Hell removed hope entirely. Pain without escape. Fear without relief. Awareness without rest. This was the core terror. People were taught from childhood that hell was not just fire. Fire was only the beginning. Hell was separation from God, from light, from goodness, a soul cut off forever. Medieval theology described hell as absolute absence of comfort. No warmth except burning, no sound except screams, no companionship except demons and the damned, and worst of all, no forgetting. The soul remembered everything, every regret, every sin, every missed chance. Memory itself became torture. People believed that in hell, the soul fully understood why it was there. There was no confusion, no misunderstanding, only certainty. And certainty destroyed hope. On earth, people could blame circumstances, poverty, hunger, bad luck. In hell, there were no excuses, only judgment. This made hell more terrifying than any physical pain, because the suffering felt deserved. That belief crushed the spirit. Medieval sermons emphasized this relentlessly. Priests did not soften hell to comfort people. They sharpened it. They described it vividly, violently, in unforgettable detail. Congregations heard about bodies flayed and restored endlessly. Souls boiled and frozen in cycles. Demons tearing flesh that immediately healed so it could be torn again. People were told that screams never stopped. That time did not dull pain, that the soul never adjusted. Eternity meant no mercy. And these were not fringe beliefs. They were mainstream. They were taught weekly, daily, constantly. Paintings in churches showed hell in horrifying realism, burning bodies, twisted faces, demons dragging the damned. Illiterate people did not need to read theology. They saw hell every Sunday. Children saw it before they could understand death. Fear became part of their worldview. This fear shaped behavior. People confessed constantly, not because they felt relieved by it, but because they feared dying with unspoken sins. A single forgotten sin mattered, a single lie, a single impure thought, a single moment of doubt. Sin was not just wrongdoing, it was danger. People believed that demons actively tried to trap souls. That temptation was not psychological. It was literal. To give in was to open the door. This made daily life exhausting. Every action carried spiritual risk. Eating too much was sin. Desiring another person was sin. Complaining was sin. Doubting God was sin. Even joy could be dangerous. Too much laughter meant forgetting God. Too much pleasure meant attachment to earth. Attachment was dangerous, because loving the world too much meant losing heaven. The safest emotional state was humility mixed with fear. Hope existed, but it was fragile. Heaven was perfect, pure, beautiful beyond imagination. But heaven felt distant, almost unreachable. The requirements were strict, the rules complex, the margin for error small. Hell felt closer. It felt easier to fall into than to escape. This imbalance shaped medieval psychology. People did not assume salvation. They feared damnation. Even saints doubted themselves. Even monks feared hell. Monasteries were not escapes from fear. They were responses to it. People withdrew from the world not to find peace, but to avoid sin. They punished their bodies voluntarily, fasted, slept little, endured pain, because temporary pain was safer than eternal pain. Suffering on earth could reduce suffering later. This logic made sense to them. Pain became investment. Hell was the debt. People did not fear dying violently. They feared dying suddenly. Sudden death removed preparation. No confession. No repentance. No last rites. A sudden accident meant hell was likely. This is why bells rang for the dying, why priests rushed through storms, why families panicked when someone collapsed. Not to save the body, to save the soul. The worst death was death without warning. Plagues were terrifying not just for how they killed, but how fast they killed. Whole families died before priests could arrive. Entire villages feared eternal damnation. Hell expanded with every epidemic. People believed mass death meant mass punishment. God was angry. Fear intensified. In this worldview, suffering made sense. Hell explained injustice, why the innocent suffered, why the wicked prospered. Justice was delayed, not denied. Everyone would be punished eventually. This belief prevented rebellion. Endurance replaced resistance. Better to suffer now than burn forever. Fear of hell controlled behavior more effectively than laws. Kings ruled bodies. The church ruled souls. And hell was the ultimate threat. People obeyed, not because they were forced, but because they were terrified. Even love was shaped by hell. Parents feared for their children's souls more than their bodies. Discipline was severe. Punishment, harsh. Better a beating now than eternal fire later. This logic justified cruelty. Fear made it feel necessary. Marriage was shaped by hell. Sex was dangerous. Desire suspicious. Pleasure outside strict rules led to damnation. Even thoughts mattered. Confession was detailed, intrusive, exhausting. People were taught to examine every desire, to doubt themselves constantly. Guilt became normal, not occasional, constant. Hell lived in the mind long before it lived in theology. Dreams terrified people. Nightmares were signs, warnings, messages. A dream of fire meant danger. A dream of falling meant sin. Sleep offered no escape. Fear followed everywhere. Hell was more present than death. Death came once. Hell was imagined every day. This is why medieval people feared hell more than dying. Death was a moment. Hell was forever. Death could bring relief. Hell removed it. Death ended hunger. Hell multiplied it. Death ended pain. Hell perfected it. To medieval people, the question was never whether they would die. It was where they would go when they did. And most feared they already knew the answer.